My name is Dr. Abyss, and everything you read or hear here must remain here. When we first landed in the Amazon, the forest felt like an ancient, indifferent entity. Its towering trees loomed over us, their branches twisting and intertwining like fingers long forgotten by time. The air, thick with moisture, pressed against our skin, as though the very atmosphere of the jungle was keeping secrets that no human should ever uncover. Every step we took seemed like an intrusion, a violation of something older and darker than the world we knew. We thought we were prepared, we were wrong. The creature, which we would later name mutagenous formivore, had been detected in the upper canopy by our drones. But its true nature was far more complex and far more horrifying than any of us could have anticipated. The early reports described it as a mimic, a shapeshifter capable of adopting the form of any living thing it observed. A jaguar, a sloth, a flock of scarlet macaws. But until that moment, it had never taken on the form of a human. Until it did, I had given the most forceful recommendation to my team. Do not engage. Observe. That is all. This wasn't a mere instruction. It was a boundary, a rule that could not be broken. The creature did not yet know what we were, and that ignorance was our greatest protection. If it learned too much about us, if it understood our true nature, it would no longer be a creature we could control. We might cease to be. We spent days in the jungle, observing from a distance, keeping our eyes on the shifting shadows of the canopy. The oppressive heat seemed to breathe with us, and a constant sense of being watched gnawed at the edges of my mind. The sounds of the jungle were distorted, mimicked even. Strange calls that seemed to echo from a distance, too perfect to be real. A jaguar's growl with a hollow undertone. Bird songs that carried the cadence of something not quite right. The creature was learning. It was close. By the fifth night, we were moving camp. The darkness of the forest pressed in on us, heavy and suffocating, like a living thing wrapping its tendrils around our every step. We moved in a line, our flashlights trembling as they cut through the oppressive blackness. Each footstep seemed to echo too loudly in the quiet, the crackle of dry leaves underfoot, a constant reminder that someone was waiting in the depths of the jungle. And then it happened, a flash of movement, a distortion in the air that only lasted a fraction of a second. It was there, a shadow emerging from the darkness, as though it had been conjured from the very void. The creature stood before us, tall and slender, its form vaguely humanoid but twisted impossibly so. Its skin was like the bark of an ancient tree, rough and textured, shifting like the leaves in the wind. The movement was unnatural, far too fluid, too graceful to belong to anything that had once been a part of the natural world. Its face, if it could even be called that, was incomplete, like a human skull that had been reshaped by some twisted force, the features poorly formed, the eyes nothing but deep, empty cavities. For a long moment, none of us moved, none of us breathed. The silence stretched on, filled only by the sound of our collective heartbeats thudding in our chests. And then it spoke. At first, it was just a noise, an unsettling, creaking sound like dry wood snapping under pressure. But it soon evolved into something more coherent, more disturbingly human. The words, it wasn't words, not exactly, were guttural, as though it were struggling to form language to understand the sounds of human speech. The creature's voice was raw, a twisted approximation of our language. It was learning. It was imitating, but it didn't yet understand. Not fully. And then it spoke again, this time its voice clearer, more precise, but still wrong. It was repeating my words, the exact command I had given to my team just hours earlier. Do not make contact, observe. The realization struck me like a hammer. It wasn't just mimicking sounds, it was learning, it was listening. Before anyone could react, the creature turned, its movements as fluid as a predator stalking its prey. It didn't run, didn't flee. It moved as though the shadows themselves were part of its form, part of its being. Within seconds, it had disappeared back into the night, leaving only the hollow echo of its voice hanging in the air like an unwanted specter. We returned to camp in stunned silence. No one spoke. We didn't need to. The creature had learned something about us. It knew we were human, and it wasn't just mimicking our forms, it was mimicking our words, our very essence. In the days that followed, things began to unravel. Strange tracks appeared near our camp, human-like tracks that belonged to no one in our team. They were too large, too elongated, and they led into the depths of the forest without explanation. We began to hear familiar sounds at night, but they were wrong. A voice calling my name, but distorted, unnatural. The unmistakable sound of my own voice, only. It was wrong. I knew what had happened. I knew what it was becoming. Mutagenous Formivore was no longer just a mimic. It was evolving. It had learned our language, our mannerisms, our fears. It was becoming us. The worst part was that it wasn't just imitating us. It was feeding on us, on our essence, on the very things that made us who we are. It had tasted our humanity, and it was beginning to weave itself into our very DNA, becoming something both like and unlike us. On the last night, it happened again. A voice perfectly clear calling my name, my exact voice. I stepped outside the tent, heart pounding in my chest. The jungle was silent, eerily so. But the voice, it was there, lingering in the air like a curse. I ventured deeper into the darkness, hoping to confront whatever twisted thing had learned to impersonate me. But when I reached the clearing, there was nothing. Just the dark, endless expanse of the jungle, and the weight of silence pressing against my ears. I felt a presence behind me, something cold and alien, but when I turned, there was nothing there. That was when I realized the truth. Mutagenous Formivore had surpassed its mimicry. It no longer needed to imitate us, it was us. And that is the horror. It is not just a creature in the jungle. It is the jungle itself. It is the very essence of everything that walks through it, moves within it, breathes the same air. It is learning, adapting, evolving. And worse still, it is no longer bound by its limitations. The barrier between us and it has been shattered. The forest is not just its domain anymore. It is ours, and it is becoming something far more terrifying than any of us could have ever imagined. Mutagenous Formivore is not just a creature of the Amazon. It is a reflection of everything we are and everything we fear. And I fear that, when it is done, we will cease to be. Because in the end, the forest will have consumed us all.